1990 is the centenary of the birth of Boris Pasternak, one of the best Russian writers of the 20th century, and UNESCO have dubbed it Pasternak Year. Yet it's less than 2 years since Pasternak's great novel of the Revolution, Dr. Zhivago, was first published in Russia. Before that, it had been banned. To mark the centenary, a unique film biography of Pasternak, the first such project to have the blessing of the Russian authorities, has been made in Russia, using Soviet actors and technicians, by Andrei Nekrasov, a young Russian filmmaker now living in London. The film will be released in Russia and Germany later this year, but it's receiving its world premiere on the South Bank show tonight. Pasternak's life was full of contradictions. He idealized a series of women, yet he seemed to move with rapidity from one relationship to the next. He was twice married, and the cause of his relationship with Olga Ivinskaya, a young journalist whom he met shortly after the war and who was to serve as a model for Lara in Dr. Zhivago, was far from smooth. On the political level, Pasternak's position was ambiguous. Having greeted the revolution with lyrical optimism, he quickly became disillusioned. Yet, although at times outspoken, he continued to enjoy the privileges of an officially recognized author and was left untouched by Stalin, while many of his fellow writers were being imprisoned or put to death. Pasternak's ambivalent feelings about women and about his own position in post-revolutionary Russia provide the central themes both for Dr. Zhivago and for the film we're about to see, which juxtaposes dramatized episodes from Pasternak's life with scenes from the novel, while the narrative is based on Pasternak's own writings.
Of this year's Nobel Prize for Literature to Mr. Boris Pasternak, the Russian novelist and poet whose novel Dr. Zhivago was recently published in the West. A leading Soviet literary journal has described Dr. Zhivago as an artistically squalid, malicious work, replete with hatred of socialism.
What has my life been? A constant battle against the reign of vulgarity, an unflagging defense of human creativity in an age when it was under threat. No straightforward autobiography could have described it. My novel, Dr. Zhivago, did. The main protagonist, the poet Yuri Zhivago, was born like me before the revolution, when it still seemed that to have a private world, a world of personal experience, of memories, aspirations, loves, was not a crime. In the novel, I've tried to capture the image of Russia in this century. Yet instead of simply sketching the old Moscow life, I first had to re-evaluate it, to grasp it in all its hidden aspects so that I could produce what I understand as realist prose. Yet my novel consists not of descriptions, but of emotions, states of mind translated into drama. I have tried to create a setting in which events would escape the taint of the ordinary, would stand, in fact, on the borderline with legend. I sought to give a definition to that sorcery that has dazzled and tormented us for the past 4 decades. In doing so, I exorcised it and gave free expression to the spirit that is the basis of all creative endeavor. The spirit of life and death.
Основная идея романа – это то, что Великая Октябрьская социалистическая революция, гражданская война, все последующие перемены в нашем обществе, счастливые перемены, они что же, выходит, принесли нашему народу одни страдания? Они что, убили морально и физически всю нашу интеллигенцию?
One may think that a book consists simply of invented scenes intended to convey this or that idea, but this is not the case. The best a writer can achieve is not to distort the voice of life within him, and that will mean telling the truth. A book is born as a live being. Its images and scenes are what the book inherits, like physical and moral features from the writer's memory. My own earliest memories, despite a childhood that gave me security and love, are colored by a peculiar feeling of isolation, of being an outsider in the world into which I was born. It was as though I was already puzzled by the great questions of existence, even before I had the words to formulate them coherently. I was born in Moscow in 1890. My father was a well-known painter in the Impressionist style. My mother, an accomplished pianist. Our house was a popular meeting place for members of Moscow's liberal intelligentsia. Tolstoy was a friend of my parents. The revolutionaries, the forerunners of my Soviet critics, did in fact share the moral tradition of the intelligentsia, inspired by Tolstoy's ideas of equality and solidarity with the oppressed. Such was the ideological atmosphere of my youth. The house in which I was born stood in the heart of Moscow's old city, in the notorious Tvertsky-Yamsky quarter. As I grew up, I was both repelled and fascinated by the gaudy pageant of life there, the brash colors in which everything seemed to be painted. There was something intensely vulgar about the tragic comedy acted out in these streets. For some, this vulgarity was simply a matter of taste, but for me, it came to represent the root cause of all the ills of society. Above all, it was the image of the fallen woman that haunted me, filling me with a mixture of compassion and desire, which remained with me all my life. Onto this extraordinary stage, I introduced a fictional character, in many ways a prototype for Zhivago. In this story, I called him simply the poet. As these women surfaced, one by one, on the muddy waters of the streets, A strange sort of trust grew up between them and the poet. But there was one girl who seemed out of the ordinary. The poet realized that the chilling indifference with which this girl reacted to everything and everyone around her was, in reality, a form of rebellion. In her docility, the apparent willingness with which she acceded to every request, he saw that she was taking upon herself all the depravity of the world. For the first time in his life, the poet wanted to be rich. He had to get hold of a huge sum of money, an immense fortune, which he would distribute among the fallen women. If he could save just one of them, his action would redeem the world. An auction was announced, the strangest auction there had ever been. It was not entirely clear what was to be sold, but news of the event spread quickly through the town, and all the wealthiest citizens attended.
Дамы и господа, единственный предмет на продажу сегодня – это поэт. Его достоинство в том, что он пишет захватывающие прекрасные стихи и всей душой сочувствует угнетенным. Купленное право на обладание не оговорено никакими условиями и сроками. Оно включает даже право лишить его жизни. Сейчас он будет выставлен на обозрение со всеми своими достоинствами.
Silence. I step onto the stage, divining in a distant echo omens of the events to come. These opera glasses, like so many guns, shooting the shadows back at me. Lord, take away this cup and let me go. I was a willing actor in your plan, but now a different drama must unfold. Too late? The Pharisees have set it down. My part is written and cannot be changed. For life is not some field we stroll across.
Продано!
Following the success of the auction, the poet took the money and gave it away to as many lost souls as he could find. On the third day, after the auction, the poet's new owner told him he was free to return to the world. When he emerged from captivity, he could scarcely recognize his country. There was turmoil in the streets. Life had changed utterly and irrevocably. It was his millions that had set people against each other and had turned the world upside down. The revolution has revitalized us all. People seem to have grown taller by a head. Ordinary men and women have become heroes. For the first time, one has the intoxicating sense of participating in history. Like all great movements in history, our revolution resulted in a host of contradictions. Poetry survived and flourished in the midst of butchery and terror.
Вступает в другие. Уже написан Вертер. А в наши дни и воздух пахнет смертью. Открыть окно, что жилы отворить.
My wife, Zhenya, and I, like most of our friends, tried to cling to the old ways, maintaining the pretense that nothing radical had happened. But the established order was rapidly destroyed. We ourselves were reduced to poverty. The new relationship between the classes meant that we had to share the common plight. Our family home, which I took charge of when my parents left Russia, has been commandeered as a refuge for displaced persons of all kinds. I now live with my wife and child in what used to be the drawing room.
Погоди, боялся. Куда ты? Что-нибудь. Но свой везде сунуть. А как рисовать-то? Вы тут кричите раз. Ну а ты зачем? Ты Юля. Ай, Юля. Одна это вчера завалит за такая. Кто ты такая? Алименщик. Да это ты, Хомка.
Вонючки вы обе, вот что. А ты то туда, то сюда.
Это я за тебя.
Тихо вы! Ты сейчас за меня, а потом ты за нее.
Васька, а я тебя хавать не буду расквашу, если ты будешь стрелять бабьи разговор.
Это для мамы картошка. Я тоже хочу. Ванька, отдай.
А ты как пьешь, ты всегда не помню.
Да ты на себя посмотри.
Да выселить ее пора, выселить ее пора.
To give each of us some sort of private space, we have had to create a partition. A whole new world is being built around us. Why is it that I can't feel part of this gigantic effort? Why am I unable to join in the general enthusiasm? But can this new world really be the one envisaged by idealists of the revolution? We are all mesmerized by some unseen power which is overwhelming our old habits, our attachments, and above all, our natural instincts. Under cover of the din of reconstruction and fraternalist rhetoric, some dark spirit has insinuated itself into our lives, undermining our beliefs and spreading uncertainty and alienation. While in the Ukraine, I met the woman who was eventually to become my second wife. She was Zinaida, wife of the great pianist Genrikh Negaus.
Что ж,
Мне что-то напомнило ту историю. Я начала вам рассказывать о ней. Офицер, мой дальний родственник. Мне было тогда 14 лет.
Our meeting, which rescued me from my growing despondency, was to coincide with a period of revitalization for Russia, a revival of the revolutionary spirit which at last held out some promise for the future. I wanted to feel in harmony with this new environment. Like other Soviet writers, I visited the farmlands to write about the party's new policy of collectivization. I even wrote a poem in praise of its architect. This is no man, but energy itself, moving amongst us, fashioning our dreams into realities, doing with ease what we had all believed impossible. At that time, Stalin was anxious for the intelligentsia to play its part in his plans. We were well looked after. We stayed in a guest house for writers and took our meals in a special canteen reserved for military and officers of state security. In fact, collectivization turned out to be a disastrous failure. With my own eyes, I witnessed human suffering on an incredible scale. It was such an unimaginable calamity, such a hellish perversion of an ideal, that normal human understanding had no way of dealing with it. And because the mistake could not be admitted, people had to be intimidated, made to forget how to think for themselves. The terror had begun. I desperately needed to find some way of reconciling these events with the rest of my universe. I had to find someone who could explain it all to me.
Да.
С вами говорят из Кремля. Товарищ Сталин будет говорить с Борисом Пастернаком.
Есть.
Лида! 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 Чего? К телефону!
Да.
Борис Леонидович, сейчас с вами будет говорить товарищ Сталин. Скажи мне, что говорят в ваших писательских кругах о современном положении в стране?
Товарищ Сталин, я не уверен, что смогу передать мнение наших писателей о том, что происходит в стране. Видите ли, никто ничего не говорит. Все боятся.
He then asked me whether I thought my fellow poet Mandelstam, who had recently been arrested, was really a great poet. In those few seconds, there was the chance to save Mandelstam by praising him to Stalin, who was fascinated by great artists. I did say that Mandelstam was a very important figure, but for some reason I was anxious to stress the theoretical differences between us as poets. And then I couldn't help changing the subject.
Послушайте. Я очень давно ждал этой возможности. Возможности поговорить с вами. Я хочу поговорить об очень важных вещах. О любви, о смерти, о жизни.
Миллионным народом нашей великой социалистической Родины мы приносим глубокую благодарность нашему Народному комиссариату внутренних дел и его лучшему руководителю, лучшему соратнику Иосифа Виссарионовича Сталина Николаю Ивановичу Ежову, который сумел разоблачить и предать суду всю подлую банду убийц.
Сегодня мы празднуем 20-летие лучших наших защитников Родины ВЧК, АГПУ, НКВД. Мы знаем, что попытка всех мастей, тигров, которые на нас мечутся, мы делать не
Разделили нашу молодую Советскую Республику, ее разделить на куски. Но у нас есть НКВД, который руководит верный сталист Николай Иванович Ежов.
An official organization, the Soviet Writers' Union, had been set up to oversee Soviet literature. As a member, albeit an outspoken one, I was entitled to certain privileges, among them a flat in a so-called writer's block in one of Moscow's smartest streets. In the cities, conditions were better now, and for the privilege, there was a good life to be had. We were also given a house in the country outside Moscow, our own dacha in the writers' village of Peredelkino.
Борис Леонидович, мы не отвлечем вас от вашей работы. Мы просто хотели бы, чтобы вы добавили свою подпись к нашим требованиям о наказании врагов народа.
Какие враги? Какое наказание?
Якира Тухачевский, предатели и шпионы. Мы просим для них высшей меры наказания.
Я этого не могу подписать.
Борис Леонидович, вы понимаете... Хорошо. Вы тут подумайте, а мы подождем на свежем воздухе.
После этого ты жить не сможешь.
Ты не имеешь права не думать о своей семье.
Товарищи, вы напрасно ждете.
In these terrible times, the worst could happen to anyone. My fellow writers are disappearing all around me. And yet, for purposes unknown to me, my own importance is being inflated, my reputation manipulated by some unseen hand. I try not to rejoice that it is I who am still alive and free. And then, surely someone has to live through it all, to reflect and suffer, to carry this tragedy inside himself. My own creative life is over. Translation is all that remains for me. To be or not to be, that is the question. Despite all its horror and suffering, the war was like a cleansing gale blowing through a room that had never been aired. A new mood of openness took hold, and it seemed impossible that the old oppression would ever return. The hardships we were now suffering seemed infinitely preferable to those of the terror. I felt like a blessing after the miasma of lies under which we had lived. And yet, the liberation we had prayed for did not come with victory. Instead, the terror resumed with undiminished savagery. How is it possible that, after it has looked total destruction in the face, a nation can once again allow itself to be force-fed the same mindless, joyless rubbish? Or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. A rhyme or a thought, something half-formed and beguiling, was ebbing between mind and soul, teasing both with the promise that the words would come of themselves. They did not.
Знаешь, Пастернак.
Борис Леонидович, Машунь, я позвоню тебе попозже, хорошо? Алло. Леонидович, здравствуйте.
In literature, I love prose best. And yet I have written mostly poetry all my life. I feel that my real work is yet to begin, and that all my writings to date are little more than sketches for a full-scale painting. God give me strength to do what I must.
Оля, позволь мне представить тебя твоему кумиру.
How late in life one finds what really matters most. But thank God for that.
Редакция «Нового мира».
I am truly happy. At last I am able to work again. This is my first really important work. It is sprung from a notion I had of a group of young people of my generation living in Moscow before the revolution. But there will be a girl, a very special girl, whom I will call a girl from a different world. Her name will be Lara. In my youth, Lara had no real prototype, but it was my destiny to meet one eventually.
Ольга Всеволодовна, я очень бы хотел иметь возможность поговорить с вами.
Борис Леонидович, телефона у меня нет, но я могу вам дать телефон соседки. Она может позвать меня прямо из своей квартиры. Есть способ. Она стучит по батарее. Г6 25 34. До встречи.
Спасибо. Я еще поработаю. Спокойной ночи.
A girl from another world. Lara was aware of touching the bedclothes with her left shoulder blade and the big toe of her right foot. These defined a space between her shoulder and foot that was vaguely herself, her soul fitting into the outline of her body and impatiently straining towards the future. Lara lived with her mother in one of the more sordid parts of Moscow. Whole streets given over to vice. The unhappy world of lost creatures, down-and-outs, vagabonds and agitators. Lara realized that nothing in life would come easily. She could not afford the luxury of theorizing about things that did not concern her. Only the superficial is sordid. Lara was the purest being in the world.
мужчина.
Да?
Ты тогда ночью, гимназисткой последних классов, была так ошеломляюще хороша. Совершенно так же хороша ты.
You were so refreshingly lovely that night, as you still are today. No more than a shadow in a schoolgirl's dress as you appeared out of the darkness. And I at once understood that this slip of a girl carried with her, like an electric charge, all the femininity in the world. Had I so much as touched you at that moment with the tip of my finger, a spark would have lit up the room. It would either have killed me on the spot or filled me for the rest of my life with an agonizing and hopeless desire. My eyes filled with tears. I felt a terrible pity for myself, but even more for you. For if it was such a torment for me to be charged with the electricity of love, how much more painful must it be for you, a woman, and the source of that charge? I have often asked myself, what was the nature of the enchantment you cast on me at that moment? That distant sound and the slowly fading light have permeated my being. They have become the medium through which I experience everything. I interpret the world through you. My secret, my forbidden angel. You made your appearance under the peaceful skies of youth. And it is not for nothing that you are with me now, under the dark skies of these turbulent days.
Dear Boris Leonidovich, it is night, and the whole town is in darkness. In the small hours, the memories of my past and of those who came before you come flooding back to me. I feel that the old force which so often took possession of me is flaring up once more.
Yes, I am jealous. I am jealous of that obscure, unconscious element, that unaccountable, irrational side to your nature. I am constantly afraid that some dark angel will swoop with a terrible agility and take you from me. Viktor Komarovsky had been an associate of Lara's late father. He was a cold-blooded businessman who was in the habit of paying visits to her mother.
Why does he look at me like that? crazy thing. Your world round and round, thinking of nothing. How strong he is. How clever his hands are. What a wonderful partner he is.
This understanding between the girl and the man seemed to Yuri Zhivago to have a frightening, mystical quality about it. It was the very force that Zhivago had always dismissed as something vulgar, and yet here, in front of his very eyes, it was so substantial, mesmerizing, destructive. Lara felt like someone about to plunge into deep water, as though an irresistible force was spinning her towards some obscure danger.
Голодных и рабов, кипит наш разум возмущенный, и смертный бой вести готов. Воспрянет род людской, воспрянет род людской, с интернационалом, воспрянет род людской. Никто не даст нам избавления, ни Бог, ни царь, ни герой. Добьемся мы освобождения своей собственной рукой. Это есть наш последний
Shots. What are these shots? How passionately they ring out. Blessed are the seduced. Blessed are the desecrated. Who are these boys shooting? Good boys, anyway. That's why they're shooting. So, now I too am one of the fallen.
This sensuality was for Lara as intoxicating as it was novel. Yet instinctively she dreaded its aftertaste. Komarovsky, like a powerful master, was a reminder of her own wretchedness. And that, in a strange way, gave her a sense of belonging to the ferment of Moscow life in those pre-revolutionary days.
Как странно все это, совсем ведь недавно была наша близость безмерна, безгранна, а ныне, что ж ныне былому не равно. Мы только знакомы, как странно. В завязке вся сказка, в развязке страдания, но думать все время о вас.
Quite distinct from the liberal image of the revolution, there was another which Zhivago came to associate with Lara. Mysterious, dark, and tantalizing, like sin. It had nothing to do with the revolution that grew out of reason and philosophy and was so welcomed by people of Zhivago's background. How unconditional, how fascinating were the decrees of the new Bolshevik government he read about that October night. How their straightforwardness won him over. But the purity of these intentions was not to last long. The political Jesuits would turn them inside out. The very next day, the process of perversion would begin. Why should I have to pay for that short-lived optimism for the rest of my life? The revolution was driving us away from cold, lifeless, uninhabitable cities. Everything established and settled, every aspect of domestic order and the common round, our customs and traditions, all have crumbled to dust and been swept away in the general upheaval shaking Russia. Life as we knew it has been utterly destroyed. Whatever one chooses to call it, socialism if you like, the new order, when it finally establishes itself, will engulf us all. It will envelop us like the sky. Everything that went before will have vanished without trace, wiped out from our collective memory. Only the bare, shivering human soul will remain, stripped to the last tatter, and searching for another as cold and lonely as itself. But you, my Olga, remain. You are for me what Lara is for Zhivago, only more so. Without you, my characters would have neither life nor love. You are entrancingly real. So real that my gift for fiction, which has been my closest companion for so long, is racked with jealousy. You are my light from another world, the distillation of all my memories, both painful and sweet, the embodiment of our history in all its grandeur and cruelty. You are the image of Russia herself, seductive, irrational, childish, promiscuous, stubborn, martyred, adored. In the last analysis, Zhivago is not a political novel. Its message is a moral and spiritual one. I will seek to show that despite all the trials we have lived through, there is some higher meaning in our collective fate. If only people can understand this, they will see that the novel is not dangerous.
Все решительно, все чувствую. Вы страшно друг к другу подходите. В высшей степени гармоническая пара. Вы на самом деле дети, ничего не подозревающие, ни о чем не задумывающиеся. Если не предотвратить беды, дни вашей свободы, может быть, и жизни сочтены. Есть некоторый коммунистический стиль. Никто так явно не противоречит этой манере жить и думать, как вы, Юрий Андреевич. Вы насмешка над этим новым миром. Его оскорбление. Ваше уничтожение на очереди. Ваше имя в списке. Я сам видел, можете мне поверить. В Приморье стягиваются политические силы, оставшиеся верными временному правительству. Я приглашен войти министром юстиции в состав нового дальневосточного правительства. Я могу взять вас и Ларису Федоровну. Я прошу прощения, Лариса Федоровна. Вы мужчина, сумасбродствовать, рисковать вашей жизнью, ваше священное право. Но не тащите за собой Ларису Федоровну.
Кройте!
Приветствую, Ольга Всеволодовна.
Здравствуйте.
Одеваемся. Собираемся.
Смотри, что там? А что тут написано?
Посмотрите, вы будете.
Все, пойдемте.
What have I done? I have given her up. I cannot believe what I've done. Goodbye. Goodbye, my only love. My love lost forever. It is as though Goethe's Faust, which I'm translating, has begun to influence my own life. Olga, my Margarita, is in prison. And like Faust, it is I who am to blame. Why is it that I'm still free? After all the terrible years we've lived through, I myself seem to have acquired an aura of immunity. Yet surely this is nonsense. Surely I am right to fear as I do, that my name may be next on the list.
Свои документы, товарищ.
Стрельникова.
Zhivago was astonished to discover that the famous Red Commander was none other than the long-haired student revolutionary from the streets of Moscow.
Был мир окраин, станций железных дорог, притонов, трущоб. Грязный, голодный, перенаселенный. Деградация рабочего как человека. Деградация женщины. И был мир мамушей, хорошеньких студентов, сыночков богатых купцов. Мир безнравственности. Страшных пороков. Мир богачей, смеющихся над слезами бедняка. Ограбленного, оскорбленного, совращенного. Царство паразитов, которые отличались только тем, что никогда ничего не давали обществу, и никогда ничего не оставляли после себя. И не думали ни о чем. Вот тогда появился марксизм. Он раскрыл корень зла и нашел средства. И он стал величайшей силой эпохи. И Тверские и Ямские были всем этим. Грязью и героизмом. Притонами и трущобами, прокламациями и баррикадами. Она была еще ребенком, но уже тогда изменчивость тех дней, и слезы, и обиды, и надежды, и тревоги, и огромные накопления мести и гордости. Все это уже было в ней, в ее осанке, в ее походке, в той смеси, которую составляли ее девичья застенчивость, изящество и благородство. Обвинение веку можно было бросить от ее имени. И я с головой окунулся в революцию, чтобы отомстить за все, что она пережила. Чтобы возврат к прошлому был невозможен. И чтобы не было больше Тверских, Ямских.
Ольга Всеволодовна, неужели вы не понимаете, что вам сейчас надо подумать о своем спасении? Допустим, я допускаю, что вы действительно не знали, что Пастернак английский шпион. А он шпион. Это факт. Но я удивляюсь другому. Вы столько времени знаете этого человека и никогда не задумывались о его суждениях, о его мыслях, а стихи? Стихи. Ну, например, из «Доктора Живаго». Магдалина. Что это? Что за эпоха? Что за намеки? Послушайте, вам не приходило в голову сказать Пастернаку, что вы советская женщина, а не какая-нибудь там Магдалина?
Так вы догадались, что это я?
А у нас здесь дураков не держат. Напрасно вы так. Нехорошо. Не хотите вы себе помочь? Ну, а нам, собственно говоря, все и так известно. И, кстати, от вашего друга, от Пастернака. Да. Он тоже здесь. И сейчас я вам устроил очную ставку. Кравченко, ко мне.
Вниз.
Что это со мной было?
Выкидыш.
Any work of art goes through a conception and a birth. For me, the central themes of existence are nativity and sacrifice. The birth of anything truly great can only come about through sacrifice.
Девятая команда! Налево! Шага, марш!
We who do not pay lip service, we lonely observers of life, shut away in the solitude of our studies, we too are hunting out evil. We too accuse and judge and burn our witches. Thou shalt not judge, for what we are persecuting is in fact inside ourselves.
Вот ваша почта. Это письмо, точнее, ну что там, сами вы видите. Вы должны прочитать в моем присутствии. Таково указание свыше. По прочтении распишитесь вот здесь.
Magdalene. Clearing before the festival, out of the crowd I sit to wash your pure and holy feet with myrrh from a bucket. I feel in vain for sandals, see nothing, weep, despair. My eyes are covered with a veil by the strands of my hair. Lord, I have held your feet with reverent care, watered them with my tears, wound them about with strings of beads taken from round my neck, and dressed them with my hair. I see the future in detail, as if it froze at your decree. At this hour I can prophesy. Like a sibyl, I can foresee. The veil of the temple shall be rent. Tomorrow we'll huddle away. The earth will sway under our feet, out of pity of me, maybe. They will form the guard in columns. All the horsemen will have gone. The cross will strain above my head like the vortex of a storm. And in silence I'll bite my lips at the foot of the cross then. Your arms will spread out on the arms of the cross to embrace too many. But for whom in all this world must your arms embrace so wide? And for whom have so much pain and so much power cried and died? 3 days shall pass by, while in my black dejection I shall grow through emptiness into the resurrection.
Картошку давай.
Да.
Что вы там не думаете о нынешних переменах у нас? Нельзя не признать, что при прежнем нашем правителе
Спасибо, поставьте.
доктор Живаго давно уже был бы доктором Мертвак.
Кто знает. Неизвестно, как бы он отреагировал на роман. И неизвестно, как все сложится теперь. И вообще, мне кажется, что влияние общественных явлений есть часть некоего общего замысла, наряду с событиями интимными. Да? Оля? А где ты? Да, конечно. Конечно, я тут собирался, я не то говорю. Конечно, да, я жду.
Почему здесь так темно? Ты боишься меня увидеть?
Писатели – это артиллеристы, это артиллерия. Потому что они, так сказать, расчищают путь для нашей пехоты. Образно говоря, прочищают мозги тому, кому следует. Чтобы вы, артиллеристы, промывали мозги своей артиллерии дальнобойной, но не засоряли. Не засоряли. Поэтому бить точно, но бить по противнику, по своим не стрелять.
Хотя ты и говоришь, что очень от этого страдаешь. Ну хорошо, мы не будем выяснять, кто больше от этого страдает. Я женщина. Я живое существо, а не плод твоего воображения. Господин классик. О, Господи.
Say what you have to, my friend. I know I must be subjected to this. You're right, of course. I have been leading a double life, in more than one sense of the word. And so, resentment flows from you to me and back, gaining force each time. I fear I will never be able to break this vicious circle. And yet your experiences have taught me a precious truth. That art is a laughable business if it is devoid of sacrifice. And if there is suffering somewhere out there, why should it not be my turn now?
Ну, хорошо. Я отдаю рукопись в новый мир. Посмотрим, что из этого выйдет.
Mr. Pasternak, the authorities say, refused to march with those who build socialism, preferring instead the path of shame and dishonor. Там, за кордоном. Он, видите ли, уверовал в Боженьку и начал писать. Если в этот напряженный период восстановления нашего хозяйства он находил время возиться с Боженькой, если он все это время держал нож, который все-таки вонзил нам в спину, то не надо нам такого человека, не надо нам такого гражданина, товарищи, такого писателя.
Just as it promised, the early sun entered between the curtains. I dreamed that you were coming through the wood to see me off. All could clearly hear a quiet voice nearby. This was my own past voice, prophetic, uncorrupted. Goodbye, azure and gold of the Transfiguration. Soften with a woman's last caress the bitterness of my hour of death. Goodbye to the years of turmoil, to the woman who defied the abyss of humiliation. I have been the battlefield on which your victories were won. Goodbye to the span of outstretched wings, to free stubbornness of flight. Goodbye to the whole world, captured in word, to my art, and the creation of miracles.